If you have 10 minutes, then you can recreate this. The first thing you're going to want to do is set up the correct page size so it can fit into social media, and then create a solid color layer, and then make it all black, and then go to opacity and make it 11. It creates like a off-white gray kind of color. And then after that, you're going to want to load in your players that you're going to want, or the pictures for the players that you're using. And I didn't end up using that exact picture, which is why I sped it up, but I just wanted to show how I did it. And the way you're going to mask your player from the rest of the picture and the background is go to the object selection tool, select subject, and it usually does a pretty good job of masking it, but clearly here it doesn't, so I'll fix that in a minute. But right here, the thing I'm usually looking at is the shift edge, just to make sure it got everything, it cut out everything that I want to include with the player, and it did there, but as you can see, there's that white space above the helmet, so I just went in there real quick and erased that, and there was stuff here in between the helmet that was still white, so I wanted to fix that. And after that, I was gonna keep more than I did, like of his shoulder pads and his jersey, but I remembered that Oregon's not in the Pac-12 anymore, so they wouldn't really go with it. And right here, I was just trying to make these two pictures go together, and I just couldn't find something that worked well, so I ended up using a different picture from his Instagram, and this is what I found looked the best. Maybe because the colors are more similar, it blends better together. And sometimes it might look better if you keep more of the jersey or the shoulder pads, but it just depends on your player, so just mess around with it and see what looks better. And then after that, you're gonna wanna load in some like rough gray background like this one. It doesn't have to be exactly this one, but just look up like rough gray background and something will come up like this. And then set it to around 50. I thought 50 was a little too dark, so I ended up lowering it a little more here. And then the next thing you're gonna wanna do is put in some of the information about the player, like his name and position, stuff like that. And then get a number from Google. I look up whatever number it is and then varsity font, and then a nice bold number like this usually comes up. And then I went and added some noise to it just to make it pop a little bit more. As you'll see here, it just adds a little bit more texture to it. And I know his jersey that he's wearing says 17, but he recently just switched to number 3, so I wanted to use his new number. And then right here, I was just trying to figure out how much noise I should add, because the number didn't just import by itself. As you can see, that gray part, that's like still connected to the number. So I came over here and change the setting to hard light so that it blends into the gray, and then the number is just there by itself. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is get your player's last name from online, or you can use one of the fonts that you have that looks good and just fit it in there behind the pictures. And then the next thing you're going to do is select the pen tool, and I just select all around the helmet, and I only want to select what I want to keep, which is the yellow and the green, which is pretty much the whole helmet. And then I'm going to make the eyes and around his eyes, I'm going to make that black and white. So after you select everything, create a vector mask, and you can pause it and slow it down if you need to see exactly what I clicked, but you're going to create a vector mask, and then after you save that part, you're going to load everything back in. And then if you're on a Mac, you just do that by holding down Command and Z at the same time. And then after you select the black and white layer, you're going to bring in the part that you just, like the helmet that you just selected using the pen tool. And then after that, you're going to go and do the same exact thing for the smaller player. And once again, you just get the pen tool and select everything that you want to keep. And for here, I did most of the yellow and green parts, except for the green jersey number. I didn't want to keep that highlighted because he changed his number to 3. And I know it's probably not the best way to do it by using the pen tool and selecting everything and then loading it back in. So if you have any better ways, just let me know. And then the next thing I'm going to do is create the shadows for his feet. You're going to want to change the size of the brush and keep the opacity at 100 for now. Like whenever you first do, I just like to keep the bot like right under the foot. I like to make that the darkest. And I noticed here that some of the foot was deleted whenever I masked it. So I just, right there, I loaded some of it back in so it looked better. And right here, I'm just messing with the opacity to try to see what looks best. And then after that, I went online and I grabbed a college football, and make that the top layer, and then remove the background. And then I always like to place it behind the player it just gives it a cool look, in my opinion. There's no like real reason why I do. I saw another person do it and I thought it looked cool, so I just wanted to do it. And then create a light shadow for your football and just make it I'm gonna make it smaller later in the video because you don't want it to be overly big because the ball is not supposed to be too big. And then after that, on my text, I made some of the font bold and then kept some of it not bolded just because I think it makes it stand out a little bit more. And then right here, this is I wanted to just make like a little headline under the number to show why there's a number 3, but yet he's wearing number 17. It's because he changed his number during the off season. So I just played around and tried to find the right font for that. And right here is where I went back in and changed the opacity for the shadow under the football. And then I also added a black and white layer along with a levels layer so I can make it darker than it normally is. And then you're going to want to load in some logos that either fit your team, either your team logo or the conference they're in or who they're sponsored by. So I just figured I'd do all of them for this one and just play around with it. It might take a minute to find what looks best, like where to locate it on the page, but I found it looked better smaller and near the bottom. And then after that, I wanted to create like little dividers, so I just grabbed the rectangle tool and created the smallest one I could. And I figured a black divider would look the best. And if you hold down Command J, you can just copy the exact rectangle so you don't have to make it again, and then just slide it over and make sure they're the same distance in between the logos. And then you're going to want to bring all the layers together by holding down Command, Option, Shift, and E at the same time, and that will mask all of the layers together. So then you can go up to Filter and then Camera Raw Filter, and then you can create filters for the whole edit at the same time. And usually what I like to do is just add more brightness and texture, but it really does depend on your graphic. But as you can see, and this isn't going to be the final part of my graphic because I really didn't like the way the gray looked, and I figured adding more color to the graphic would help it look better. So the way I did that was by getting the eyedropper tool, which just choose the exact color on the graphic. And after I found the green that I wanted to use, I go up to the color picker and I copy the exact color that it is, so I can create a gradient color layer, and then go in there and paste the exact green that you wanna draw onto the graphic. And then I just added it to one half of my graphic, and I'm gonna lower the opacity here to just try to fit Oregon's green a little bit better. And I thought this one looked good. And then after that, I went and grabbed the same tool, and then I wanted to choose the yellow that was on the helmet. It took me a minute to find the one I wanted. And then after that, I just did the same thing. I copy it and then paste it into the gradient tool. And I do the same thing with drawing the yellow on. It takes a minute sometimes to get the exact brightness that you want for each of the gradient layers. So this is me right here just playing around with everything, trying to figure out what looks good. And then after I found what I liked, I wanted to add some noise to the gradient layers that I just added. So you select the gradient layer and then you go up to Filter and then Add Noise, and then just play around with what looks good for yours. And I didn't add any extra noise here to the green because some of the other gradient layer kind of overlapped on, so it kind of looked like the green already had it. And then here I'm just organizing the layers to try to make sure everything is popping the way it should. And then one of the final things I did was add a camera raw filter for the smaller picture. And the main thing I did was add exposure and texture. And you can slow it down and pause it if you want the exact edits that I did. And then right here I was just lowering the opacity and changing the size of the shadow for the football. I also added a camera raw filter for the bigger picture of the player, and it was mainly just sharpening and texture for him. I just wanted to pop as much as it can. And then to finish, you hold Command, Option, Shift, and E again to mask all of the layers. And I just wanted to make it a little bit brighter. And usually adding exposure and texture and then sharpening helps that. And sometimes grain can make it pop a little bit more. And then I wanted to add a little bit of text in the top to make it not so just blank. So I just added Oregon Ducks football, and I changed the font a little bit to see what looks best. And I just wanted to keep it real simple. And after you find the font that looks good to you and the size that looks good, just center it in the middle at the top, and that's it for this graphic. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you watching. And if you want more videos like this, just drop a comment. Thank you.